Hey, how's it going in the studio? I want to talk about Irish Potato Famine and what happened. The Irish Potato Famine, also known as the Great Famine or the Great Hunger, was a period of mass starvation and diseases in Ireland that occurred between 1845 and 1852. It was primarily caused by the failure of potato crop. I have done a little research to understand myself, but I'm interested to find what other information might be able up there, why that happened across the Europe in the beginning, would and later spread out all the way to Ireland, which was a staple food for Irish population at that time. Just because of how many calories they were able to grow, and not necessarily that was limited to potatoes, but most of the calories most likely at the time was coming from potatoes. Let's take a look at the key points about the Irish potato famine, some of the characteristics and some of the key takeaways. Potato dependency. The Irish population was highly dependent on the potato as a food source. The potato was well suited to the Irish climate and soil and provided a cheap and reliable source of nutrition for all levels of people, right? So depending on location across the world, most of the people would look for high carb dense foods. Would that be in Asia? That perhaps would be rice, and more in Europe, that perhaps would be potatoes, and of course the history and how that shaped the way how people eat and what kind of food they choose over what would be sourced locally or imported food. Potato blight in 1845, potato disease known as late blight caused by the fungus Phytophthora infestans struck the potato crop. The disease rapidly spread and the potatoes in Ireland began to rot in the fields. I think it is all this disease. I don't know how accurate this information is. I know sharing the misinformation, right? But the same would be with the Spanish. Some of the diseases, right? It was not a Spanish disease, but it was discovered by Spanish, and some of the diseases out there would be called like that. With this particular instance, I have done a little bit of research to understand that, or this particular fungus have started in North America, and from there it progressed to Europe. So they just, if anything, I think you look at food and where we are sourcing our food from. If anything, currently UK overall is sourcing just half of its food, and half, 48%, would be sourced locally, and 52% would be imported currently within with the data that everyone has access to up there. Crop failures. Subsequent years also saw widespread potato crop failures leading to severe food shortages. The failure of the potato crop was compounded by the fact that the Irish peasantry had little access to alternative food sources. Just someone perhaps, people up there need to learn from history, right? So if there are some countries up there who are mainly focusing on production of food. If anything, they need to perhaps those governments up there, or if anything, governments do not produce anything, people up there and business people up there, if they selling a lot of wine or whatever olive oil, if they because of the climate changes, a lot of things can take into effect that could potentially affect the crop yields, right? So if anything, diversified, right? So and finding a way of perhaps growing and sourcing different sources of food down the line later. British response: the British government, which ruled Ireland at the time, had various policies and responses to this particular crisis. Some relief efforts were made, but they were often inadequate or insufficient. The British government also adhered to laissez-faire economic policies which hindered more robust interventions. So there was a person, I'm not entirely sure if that information is accurate, there was a person who had to oversee everything. The person, without sharing any names, he put together a policy which would say that it would perhaps make people more keen in doing more and producing more, even if Ireland as a whole was producing a lot of food, but it was exporting a lot of food, not necessarily consuming themselves at the time. Some of those areas would be beef, which recently with inflation have increased threefold. But either way, so it would be beef, and Ireland would export a lot of its food, but not necessarily consume themselves, which led to, depending on the records, again, I wasn't there at the time. Some of the numbers would say about 2 million people at the time that was living in Ireland have died because of starvation. So it is perhaps worth noting. This is history. This is what happened, right? So and a lot of people have moved to other places like North America, Australia, other places, right? So this is what was happening at the time. Death and emigration. The famine had devastating consequences. Hundreds of thousands of people died from starvation and related diseases, and many others emigrated to escape desperate conditions. It's estimated that around 1 million people died and another million emigrated during the famine. So, depending again, yeah, so what sources, and even right now, what sources I'm using. Some of the sources would say 2 million have died from famine, but either way, and on top of that, a lot of people have emigrated. The basing of the numbers who have lived in Ireland at the time, there isn't that many people like it was living at the time. Yeah, so it's just something worth mentioning. Social and economic impact. The famine had a profound and lasting impact on Ireland's society and culture. It depended on divide between the Irish Catholic majority and Protestant landowning class. Right. That makes a little more sense. So the way classes, that's the way how I would put it, the structure of the society at the time. If you actually own the property on which you can grow the crops and potentially within the return or looking after those crops, someone was working for you. So again, this is what I'm trying to understand. What was the social structure? But they would say the religion has something to do either way, as well as between Ireland and Britain. It also had long-term economic and demographic consequences. Either way, so some of the people who had some property, right? So, and if the country at the time was starving, right? Some of that this is records, right? So I don't know if it's accurate or not. So they had given away some of the property, land, or whatever the case might be, any assets that they had in return for food. So yeah, if everyone was starving, whole country so it was starving, so people took major actions to perhaps prevent their own extinction. Relief efforts. Various relief organizations, including Quackers and the government, attempted to provide food and assistance to a starving population. However, these efforts often fell short on the need, and disruption problems were common. I don't know. Again, so some information up there would say that even from America, there was a lot of aid sent to Ireland, and even to unload any of that aid, there was a tax on top of that. So people don't have food, they don't have money, right? So other countries would send food by boats, right? And there would be a tax to unload any of that aid. Legacy. The memory of Irish Potato Famine remains a significant part of Irish history. It has influenced Irish identity and politics. It's seen as a symbol of British oppression and neglect of Ireland during that period. For people out there who are interested in learning more, I have published a course so you could improve yourself, learn new things, and develop your own skills. That would be key areas, 12 different areas that I have identified within this course for anyone who are interested in perhaps becoming more effective, better when it comes to managing your tasks or prioritizing tasks, overcoming procrastination, completing a task, taking action, all those areas covered within this course. I have published a number of different formats for people out there who are interested in PDF files. Would that be video format? I have a number of courses that I'm looking to do as well. But if we were to begin with this particular course, there to work with you. In this particular video, I'm covering Ireland. And some of the obstacles that, as a whole, they had to overcome, and right now, the way how country is performing is top tier countries there with GDP per capita, right? So whatever the struggle they had to overcome, and some of the obstacles as a whole they had to overcome, and how they're performing right now. Not necessarily have a large military, so they save some money there, but overall performing when it comes to economic output, they definitely top the top two countries up there within Europe. The Irish Potato Famine is a tragic chapter in Irish history, with long-lasting effects on the country. It is subject to historical research, literature, and cultural remembrance. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next one.